Andrew Carnegie led the steel industry. He employed tens of thousands of people and laid the foundation for how the American steel industry functioned. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the home of Carnegie Steel, was a hub for iron and steel and the production of machinery and fabricated metals. Coke was a primary ingredient used to produce iron and steel, and in Pennsylvania the coke was uniquely pure, and the production of coke in Pennsylvania fueled Carnegie's industry and the expansion of the rail and structural steel. Andrew Carnegie was born in Dunfermline, Scotland on November 25, 1835. He was born in the attic of a one-story house on the corner of Moody Street and Peory Lane. Carnegie stated that he was born to very poor but very honest parents, and in his autobiography, he speaks very fondly about his childhood and surroundings. They left for America when he was 13 due to the economic downturn, and this ended his formal schooling. Carnegie and his family made their way to Pittsburgh, where family and friends met them and took them in. His mother found employment and earned $4 a week binding shoes, and Carnegie, at the mere age of 13, calculated that $25 a month would bring his family independence. His first paying job was that of a bobbin boy, and he earned $1.20 a week. Carnegie stated that he worked long hours and the work was not pleasurable. However, the cloud had a silver lining because it gave him the feeling that he was doing something for his world, for his family. And he stated in his autobiography, "I had made millions, but none of these millions gave me such happiness as my first week's earnings. I was now a helper of the family, a breadwinner, and no longer a total charge upon my parents." In 1850, he got a job running a steam engine for $2 a week, was constantly learning, and he felt like his foot was sitting on the ladder that he was going to climb. In 1864, he realized that American railways were dangerous, and he found no problem finding partners in capital, and therefore this superior rail mill and blast furnaces were built. Carnegie was fascinated by iron bridges as he knew that wooden bridges were obsolete, as he had witnessed one burn along the Pennsylvania Railroad. Carnegie then invested in a company that would build iron bridges and borrowed $1,250 to do so. In 1862, he organized the firm of Piper and Schiffler and merged it to the Keystone Bridge Company in 1863. He stated this was the beginning of how iron bridges came to be used in the United States and in the world, as far as he knew. He also stated that the Keystone Bridge Works were always a sense of satisfaction to him, because while other bridges failed, his were successful because he used only the best material. They made their own iron and later their own steel. They were their own strictest inspectors, and they would build a safe structure or they would not build one at all. According to Scott Harlan, throughout the years, Carnegie wisely invested while working industriously. Carnegie first invested in a delivery venture. Shortly before the Civil War, he invested in a sleeping car. And in this venture, he had invested 8%. He then in turn took $11,000 and invested in his neighbor's oil business, Columbia Oil. And within a short time frame, he was paid almost $18,000. He promptly reinvested this. By 1863, Carnegie earned $42,000 a year, and by 28 years of age, he was a wealthy man. In 1865, he left the Pennsylvania Railroad Company and invested in the Keystone Bridge Company mentioned earlier. He then established Keystone Telegraph Company and then sold the company to Western Union. Carnegie at this point pledged to live on only $50,000 a year and to somehow leave the rest of his assets to charity. This was before he invested in steel. Carnegie was 38 when he realized that steel, thanks to the Bessemer process, would replace iron. Upon returning from the Bessemer's plant in Sheffield, England in 1872, he decided to open his own plant. His first steel mill was named the Edgar Thomson. The first order he filled was to none other than the Pennsylvania Railroad. He was a forerunner of vertical integration. He owned the raw materials and the means of production. Vertical integration cut out the competition and kept the prices low. Carnegie's plants were always the largest, the most modern, and he always strived to keep prices down. In his autobiography, he noted that it took years of work to finally begin to get an idea of what every department in his business was doing, and he developed a strict system of accounting. According to Carnegie, it was this strict accounting that enabled him to eliminate the waste that was involved with the process of heating large amounts of iron. Carnegie constantly reinvested in his own business and had a knack for assessing production, pricing, and calculating profitability. He also had a knack for reading people and developing nurturing relationships that would in turn sustain his businesses. For example, as Holleran notes, a manager requested a salary of $20,000 but said he would work for $15,000. Carnegie turned around and paid him $25,000 a year, and because of this, he earned this individual's lifelong loyalty. Even though Carnegie was troubled by labor disputes and troublesome events, he still believed in the right for employees to form labor unions. Near the end of the 1890s, Carnegie Steel Company was the largest producer of steel and manufactured a quarter of the nation's steel. Profits were as high as $40 million in 1900. In an article in the New York Times in 1899, Carnegie expressed that the United States could supply the entire world with steel. Britain and Germany couldn't begin to compete with American steel production, according to Carnegie. He felt that there was never a more favorable time for expansion. Costs were at an all-time low, including transporting steel across the sea. He assessed that the certain conditions throughout the world brought him to the conclusion that America could meet the demands for steel for the entire world. He believed that American manufacturers would go abroad to a much greater extent than the raw steel itself. For steel, according to Carnegie, carries with it supremacy in so many branches. Cheapest steel means the cheapest machinery, the cheapest ships, and 1,000 other cheapest things. All America needed, according to become the world's source for steel, according to Carnegie, was peace, security, freedom from war, and from disturbing rumors of war that were almost prejudicial as war itself. In 1901, Carnegie sold Carnegie Steel for $480 million to J.P. Morgan. U.S. Steel was the first billion-dollar company in the world, and at 65, Carnegie turned his energy towards philanthropy.